Good afternoon and welcome to Math Today. Today we are going to do a quick review of what we've been doing the last few days. First of all, can anyone tell me the three signs that we have used for multiplication? What are the three signs? We have the traditional X, which stands for multiplication. We have the star, that stands for multiplication. And we also have the dot, that stands for multiplication. All of these stand for multiplying. When we talk about division, to divide, what are the symbols that we use to divide? There are four different ones that we've talked about here. I'm using my keypad here, so it's a little difficult to write, so I apologize for that. So the four symbols that we use for division are the traditional division symbol, which we see a lot. We use the bracket, which you can divide by. We use a fraction, which is used to, which represents division. Or we can write it as 3 divided by 4. Okay, so these are the four ways that we've talked about division and the three ways that we've talked about multiplication. Hopefully this is just a review. As we went on yesterday, we started talking about how to solve and how to write equations for different problems. So if you take a look up in the left-hand corner here, I will read this aloud as you read it silently to yourself. Prairie Town is 15 miles away. If you have driven 1/3 of the distance, how many miles have you gone? Well, I have started with a number line here. We're going to start with what? 0. So we started at 0. And if we go all the way to Prairie Town, how many miles away is that? 15. We're going to go to 15. Okay. So how do we find the answer to the distance that we have traveled? Well, let's go back up. Let's write our equation. You can see I've already got P here to stand for Prairie Town. How far have we actually driven so far? Well, if we go back up in the question, it says if you have driven 1/3 of the distance, how many miles have you gone? So we have traveled 1/3. 1/3 of how many miles? Good, 15. So we have traveled 1/3 of 15 miles. So if we want to find the answer to 1/3 of 15, first of all, what does of stand for? Yes, that stands for multiply. Good. So we take 1/3 times 15. But can we leave 15 just as it is, or do we have to do something different with that? That's right. We have to make it a fraction. How do you make 15 a fraction? You put 15 over 1. Is 15 over 1 the same as 15 wholes? You bet it is. Good job. So Prairie Town is equal to 1/3 times 15 over 1. Now, to find the distance that we have traveled, we are going to multiply. 1 times 15 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3. So 15 divided by 3. Now remember that the fraction represents a division problem. So 15 divided by 3 is equal to what? 5. So let's go back up to our question. It says Prairie Town is 15 miles away. If you have driven 1/3 of the distance, how many miles have you gone? Well, if we went 1/3 of the distance, 1/3 of the 15 miles, how far have we gone? We have gone 5 miles. Very good. So if you come up here, I've divided this into 3 sections. I started at 0 and I ended at 15, and I divided this into 3 because I looked at my denominator. My denominator was 3. So I divided this into 1 section, 2, and 3. So if I went a third of the way, I would have traveled 5 miles. If I went 2/3 of the way, I would have went 10 miles. And if I traveled 3/3, which is all the way, then I went 15. So again, if I went 1/3 of the distance, I went 5 miles. If I went 2/3 of the distance, I went 10 miles. And if I went 3/3, which is the whole way, because that would be a whole, right? 3/3, then I went the whole 15 miles. These are the types of problems and equations that we worked on yesterday in class. Today, we're going to go a little bit further, and we are going to work on some of these. So if you want to look up here and take a look, it says Silver City is 24 miles away. Gus has driven 1/4 of the distance. Emma has driven 3/4 of the distance. So we can see here is Gus is represented here, okay, and Emma is represented down here, all right? So we have them both represented. Now, number 1 asks, how many miles has Gus driven? Well, they have already got this divided for us, which is very nice. So Gus has driven how far? Well, they started at 0 miles. They're going to 24. They divide them into 4 sections because look at the denominator. What is the denominator? 4. So they have divided these into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they have divided these into 4 sections for us to look at. Now, how many miles has Gus driven? Well, if we go right here, he's went from 0 to 6. So Gus has driven 6 miles so far. So maybe we can get that in there, 6. Don't forget to put your label, 6 miles. How many miles has Emma driven? Well, if you go to Emma, she has went 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 of the way. So 3/6 would be 6 times 3 would be 18. Or you can see that the car's right at 18 miles. So Emma has traveled 18 miles. Good. How many times as far as Gus has Emma driven? Well, Emma has driven 1, 2, 3. So how many times farther than Gus? She has went 3 times further than Gus. All right, is everybody still with me? All right, don't be afraid to ask if you need help or raise your hand. Number 4, if 1/5 of a distance is 3 kilometers, how far is 4/5? Well, if you have 1/5 of the distance being 3 kilometers, okay, so if you take 3 kilometers, if you take 3 kilometers and you make a bucket for 3, okay, how much is 4 of the 5? Well, if you did 1, 2, 3, 4, and each one of those represented 3. Count with me. 3, 6, 9, and 12. So 4/5 would represent 12. All right. Let's go to number 5. You're going to do that the same way. If you have 1/8 of a container weighs 2 pounds, okay, here's 2 pounds. How many pounds is 3/8 of a container going to weigh? Well, there's 1. So if we add 2 more, there's another one. There's another one. So we have a total of 2, 4, 6. 6 pounds. Kind of hard to type in these numbers. All right. Number 6. It says 1/7 of a book is 4 pages. So here's 1/7 of a book. It's 4 pages. Well, how many pages is 2/7 of a book? Well, easy. Add another one. Now you have 2 of the 7, and that's also 4. So 4 plus 4 would be how many? 8. 8 pages. All right. Good job. We are going to go and do 7 and 8 together live. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you understood that. And if you didn't, be sure that you ask questions. Thank you.